Welcome to episode 10 of Find Music. Yeah, I'm getting it right every time now. We are always in quest of helping you find artists you may not already know compared to artists you do know, and albums by artists you may already know and may not know the album so well. We've had both of those in episodes 8 and 9 today, and I'm going to try to make a great comparison here. This is going to be a toughie, but I think this band can live up to it. If you like the Beatles, no less, right? They are the paragons of versatility in the music industry, right? I was just playing on the way to Walmart this morning, The Inner Light, which is the famous B-side of Lady Madonna. And that has, George's Indian music in there. And so the music's coming on, and my passenger is saying, "Who is that?" And I said, "It's the Beatles." They were shocked. Yeah, but that's the versatility of the Beatles. Okay, so the band I'm going to compare to the Beatles is the Charlatans. Now that's the problem. There was a band in the 60s called the Charlatans. And so this English band, to attempt to break in America, they had to change their name to the Charlatans UK. Yeah, so I don't know if that was a blessing or a curse, but I found them from the very beginning back in 1990. Their very first album called Some Friendly. I'll play a little snip of that in a minute. And they were associated with a particular sound that was called the Manchester sound from Manchester, England. And probably the most famous band that had that sound was Oasis. There was also another band that was fairly popular for a short time. They didn't last long, the Happy Mondays. And Oasis legendary for their brawls, those brothers brawling. Right, so they didn't really change their sound, but the Charlatans, much to my complete surprise, did. Because their chief songwriter, Tim Burgess, very talented songwriter, and I'll play a little bit of the first album so you can hear that Manchester sound, their legendary single. All right, how do I do this? I'm going to screen share. Yeah. Commencing screen share in 3, 2, 1. All right. So I'm playing from my library. This is music I purchased. These artists have made money from me. And their first album, like I said, is called Some Friendly. They had a 20th anniversary reissue with some B-sides on the second disc, but the song they're famous for was their first hit single, The Only One I Know. Play a few seconds of that. Now that's a snip. So, they're these English guys. They had a dance sound. That's what Manchester was all about. They had a dance sound and smooth vocals. And those smooth vocals were inspired by a band that really only made 2 albums. They were really big in England, didn't hit America at all. They were called the Stone Roses.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a lead singer now, I think his name was Ian Brown. And he had that smooth sound. So that's kind of, and initially, that's what Tim Burgess was doing. He was going for that Ian Brown sound. And both bands are very good at that time. I mean, the Stone Roses only made 2 albums, but they're sensational. That was the Manchester sound. But then apparently the Charlatans, they weren't, that wasn't good enough for them. They weren't satisfied with just that. And can you see that I changed the page, Dr. Bravo? Is it a different album on there now? Yeah, okay. So
Messed up. Yeah.
yeah, so I just want to be sure it could be seen. Their second album is called Between 10th and 11th. And right away, you're going to hear a change in sound. It's not going to be so dancey. Going to have a little more. This album has kind of got the special effects in it. It even has a quotation from a poet. No one, not even the rain. That's E. E. Cummings. That was not the hit single. The single from this album was called Weirdo. So I'll play a little bit of Weirdo. All right, that's a good short snip. Trying to stay out of trouble here. So as you can see, they're a little more conscious of their instrumentation on this second album. And Tim Burgess is no longer trying to imitate Ian Brown. He's got his own. Yeah. And then it goes a step farther. Their third album. It's going to be way down here because it's alphabetical here in. There it is. Their third album came out 1994. It's like about it. They come out with an album every couple of years. And this one's called Up to Our Hips. And this is, again, another change in sound. What would be most representative here? I would pick, I guess we'll stay with the singles, although this one is, we'll let people judge, called Can't Get Out of Bed. So the reviewers said that the Charlatans were trying to sound like the Rolling Stones here. It's a sloppier sound. Hey, that's my dig at the Rolling Stones. And the vocals are a little sloppier too. Yeah, but the instrumentation is always very good on these albums. I just love the instrumentation. That's what I value most about the Charlatans. They, up until the last couple of years, the instrumentation was strong, but unfortunately, they lost a couple of members. One of them died in a car crash in, I think it was 1996. And then most recently, their drummer, he died from a brain tumor about 5 years ago. So that pretty much did end the band, right? So I think they're hanging it up, but Tim Burgess is such a songwriter. He keeps going, So I want to keep going here too. Try to keep this episode from being a half an hour. But let's see, that fourth album, I don't like it at all. I didn't even buy it. I'm gonna be honest. It's called The Charlatans. It's an eponymous album, and they just go too far with the Rolling Stones sound, and they sound like their Satanic Majesty's Request. The vocals are kind of buried, and the sound is hazy and junky. And I think there's a live version I would have of one of those songs, just to illustrate my point. This is a live album, and the song is called well, maybe that's why I bought this live album. That song's not on here. Yay. So I'm really not a fan of their fourth album. Yeah, okay, you're not going to hear it. Okay, tough luck, people. But here's the amazing thing. After this album, their keyboard player was the one that was killed in the car crash. That's a pretty vital component in this band. because he's an organist and he's got that 60s vibe. And he was gone. And so they had to find a replacement. And that album is called Telling Stories, came out in 97. They were working on the album before he died. There's even a cut called Rob's Theme. Rob Collins was the name of the keyboard player who died. And they actually came up with their biggest hit in England. And that's this song called One to Another. So play a snip of that. Starts quiet. I hope that snip was not too short, but it had a long intro. So just like the Beatles, their first 4 albums, 5 albums had that same dance sound. You know, if you know the Beatles, you know what I'm talking about, right? They didn't get real experimental until Rubber Soul. That's where the 6th album kicked in the experimentation. So this album was the commercial zenith in England for the band. One to Another, North Country Boy, huge hits in England. And the thing they discovered was the pop aspect of their sound, that they could be popular. So what did Tim Burgess do? He had to undercut that. And he did it in a really creative way. This is where the creativity pops in. In fact, it's a lot like the Beatles. What did the Beatles do? John Lennon met some guy named Bob Dylan. You might have heard of Mr. Zimmerman. Well, it's amazing. The same thing happens in their 1999 album, which is called Us and Us Only. Tim Burgess finds his inner Dylan. All right, where's Us and Us Only? So there it is, 1999. So just at the point where you think they might start boring you with the same dance sound, they abandon it completely. And I'm going to play, I could play the hit, which is Forever, has a long intro, but the one that sounds more Dylan-ish, I think would be the Blonde Waltz or House Is Not a Home. Try one of those. Here's one I recently posted on Steve's Music Machine. A house is not a home. That's a place. Detect a small change in voice there? Yeah, trying to be a little more scraggly. And the band is a little less sloppy. And that's kind of a harbinger of the future for the band. Because this album, I don't think it was as successful as the previous couple albums. But Forever is definitely a wonderful song, and you'll have to find that out on your own because I don't want to play too much here. I want to keep it moving. I think this was the point where they realized they weren't going to make it in America, right? Because they tried, and I think there was actually, I'm wrong. They made the effort. That's right. 2001, they went to Los Angeles. Tim Burgess moved to Los Angeles, and did something pretty radical to his sound. He went falsetto, trying to sound like a soul band. right? So this is where the variety just starts rolling on here. Give you the song Judas. Prepare yourself for the vocals. Same singer, went falsetto, have a soul sound, and didn't happen for them in America. He tried, didn't happen. I enjoy every album because the instrumentation is always stellar, especially that drummer. They call him the human metronome. He's just a fantastic drummer, and on every album, almost every album, they have an instrumental cut. Like here, they have the Bell and the Butterflies instrumental. And you might remember Rob's theme. I mentioned it. It was a showcase for the Lake keyboardist. All right. So yeah, this is where they gave up. So they took a couple of years to regroup, and they came out with a masterpiece in 2004, which is right there, Up at the Lake. The first song I posted on Steve's Music's Machine today, because our theme was place, Up at the Lake. And this is their poppiest album by far. They gave up on the dance thing. They thought, okay, we'll go back to what made us a hit in England. Only one problem. You'll hear it. Yeah, he developed a voice that was both regular and falsetto and goes shifting in between them. But the songs are definitely more pop oriented, and I don't think there were any hits though in England for this album. This is the buried album. It wasn't even released in America. Didn't even try. And that set up a pattern for them. But still, there's no bad songs. This band is incapable of writing a bad song, in my opinion. And at this point, Tim was starting to get restless. So he did a solo record. And then when he went back to the band, they tried another style, reggae. There's a 2006 Simpatico. There it is. And I'm going to play Muddy Ground. Not the hit, but I know it got played a lot. Those will give you a sense of the reggae sound they went for. Blame the bassist, I say. Yeah, so that reggae sound was just for this album. It was an experiment and didn't amount to much. They had a minor hit with Black and Blue Eyes in England. So where to take it from here? Well, about this time, a lot of bands were having trouble selling records because people were downloading music. So their next album, they offered it for free. A lot of bands were doing that. U2, you might remember, offered a free album. And so the Charlatans did the same thing with their album called You Cross My Path. And these free albums, you know, they were not cast-offs by any means. It's a great album. Later, it came out with bonus tracks when they started actually selling the album. But when it was free, it was just 10 tracks. And I'll play you the single. Again, a minor hit. Ooh, I cut it off before the chorus. Yeah. But another minor hit. And at this point, I think they made one more album before they lost their drummer. We're almost to the end of the road already. It would be 2010, Who We Touch, I believe. Yep, that's the one, 2010, Who We Touch. So this is the last album they made with their drummer before he passed away from a brain tumor. And at this point, they lost some of their edge, started getting mellower. And what song illustrates that the best? Let's try Intimacy. So yeah, they've been around for 20 years by this point, and I guess they're getting older, so that youthful edge was gone, and then the drummer was gone, and since then, they've really only released a couple of albums, and they're more conventional in the sense that they go for the single, and then the rest, you know, not as good. In fact, a little more somnambulistic, if I can use that expression. This is where they lost that intensity with every track. Who We Touch, every track wonderful. But after that, I'm gonna switch over to the later albums. There's two of them. One's called Modern Nature. There was a big 5-year space in between there. 2015 Modern Nature and 2017 Different Days. These are really their last two albums, and so they're going for singles here. I'll just play you a snip of two of them. One from Modern Nature. So That's practically pillow soft. I'm putting my co-host to sleep. This last song, Different Days. Trying to get some edge back.
Different days, nature's gaze in the heavens, always awake when we kill in the darkness.
Maybe they've gone full circle. Maybe comparing to the Beatles is a little too much. But I admired that Tim Burgess attempted different styles, how each album could have its own flavor. That made the band interesting for me. They didn't just always have the exact same sound. And they overcame, lost two of their members and made it to this point where they can look back over 30 years and had some successes. So I recommend the Charlatans, if you like the Beatles, give the Charlatans a try. Their sound is even more versatile than I was able to exhibit here, because I only played one snip from each album. There is a lot to explore, both up-tempo and downbeat on their albums. All right, that ends this lengthy episode 10.